on in the trucking industry here lately. It's hard to keep up with it all. How are you guys all doing tonight? Brenton, before your question rolls off my screen here, I want to say W900A with a big Cam Cummins. Certainly would be a beautiful truck. It'd probably be a good starter truck if you're a good driver. They weren't the easiest thing to maneuver in a tight spot, but man, the thing would sure hold its value and be a beautiful truck to have. Bradley, love the channel. Thank you, sir.
Hello, everyone.
Everybody, how are you guys all doing out there tonight? All sorts of stuff going on. As I said, I don't know how you guys are making out with freight here lately. The pandemic has certainly put a dent in the freight market. The rates are low. A lot of sitting around time. So,
Hello, everyone.
hello, everyone. Carrie Churchill. Hi, folks. Hey, Carrie, how are you? Kevin, my company won't give me more than 6,000 miles a month. Michael Mueller, good to see you there. Muppet from Australia. Hey, Benny. John Polk from Brooklyn, Iowa. That's trucking country out there. Samira Stones, am I saying that right? Samira? Hi, Samira. Grizz from Cosmo. Hello from Canada. Hello, sir. Dance Cool, David Steele, Toe Guy. All sorts of people jumping in with us. It's good to see. Michael S. from Colorado. Hello, Michael. Sign Cutter, passed my CDL 2 weeks ago. Long time coming. Congratulations. Congratulations. I bet you that feels good to have that finally.
PC.
Breton, what do you think about the white GMC Volvo? Not a big fan of those, Breton. I know they're cheap to buy, but they don't hold their value at all. Some of the European work under the hood isn't what I'm familiar with, so I'd stay away from that if I were you. I know they're cheap, but I'd go a Freightliner before I'd go a Volvo, but I still like the W900A a lot better. Spencer, hi from BC. Hello, Spencer, how are you? Hello from PA. Grilled Mortal, greetings. Greetings. Bloomington, Illinois, Bloomington, Indiana. Michael, I presume. Bruce Watson, I quit my job last Friday. Glad I'm rich. Hey, Bruce, it's the right time of year to be quitting if you're going to quit. Enjoy the summer, have the summer off anyway. Michael Gallagher in Cameron, Missouri. Hello from Florida. I bet you it's starting to get warm down there right about now. All sorts of stuff going on. How are you guys all doing anyway? Okay. I had a question earlier about truck robotics and how that was going. A couple of years ago, everybody was all concerned that these autonomous trucks were going to take our jobs. And I don't know if you've been following since then, but they don't make the news very often because they're not a big deal. They haven't really gone anywhere. Now, Starsky Robotics has gone right out of business, and they said their problem was they couldn't get outside investors. Tesla here is now saying they need $180 billion more to keep developing their trucks. Investors just aren't attracted right now to these autonomous trucks because they're having too many issues with the safety factors. Investors figures you just plug them in, drive them down the road, no driver, save money, make money, start making money. They're a whole lot more complicated than that. So they're not doing very well these days. So anybody that thought they were going to lose their trucking job to the autonomous trucks, I bet you're feeling better right about now. Love the channel. I'm an owner-operator currently in Oklahoma at the Flying J, Wade the Fourth. Thanks for coming in, Wade. Hello from PA. Greetings from the WH. I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, so I hope you guys aren't being affected too badly by these riots that are having in the States these days. I saw footage the other day, and I think it was in Minneapolis, where a tanker truck mistakenly was on the interstate that they had the protesters on it. Geez, he damn near hit a couple of them. It was a close call. Apparently it was accidental. It wasn't a deliberate action on the part of the driver in the tanker. I guess he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's kind of scary to watch. Of course, they pulled him out of the cab and beat the heck out of him. I don't think that was necessary, but maybe they thought he was doing it deliberately. But what a disaster! What a mess! I hate to see that kind of stuff going on, and I hate it when anything interrupts the flow of commerce, especially your commerce, because all that cuts into your paycheck. I know I used to get stuck every once in a while, and at the end of the month, you can look at your pay and go, "Yep, that was where the slow period was. I got hung up at the shipper or something like that." It all adds up and it all hurts. So I hope this isn't affecting you guys too adversely out there, but it's got to be affecting you to some extent. They say the freight market is slowly improving, slowly coming back. Glad to hear that. I guess reefer work is up a little bit right now. Flatbed and van are still suffering, but I'm reading that reefer work is starting to come back, and that always stands to follow because people have to eat. So it's going to be just a fact of life that there's always going to be reefer freight. What else have we got going on here?
Somebody that commented they were at the White Stallion truck stop.
No kidding. White Stallion. Mine's not scrolling here, by the way. The White Stallion isn't too far from where we are. That used to be a thriving truck stop back in its day, boy. That was a happening place. Big dirt parking lot, but there was a lot of traffic that ran through there. Not so much anymore. But at one time that was a busy place. It's completely gone now. It's completely torn down, but oh well, it was a deal in its day, that's for sure. Morgan Stanley investment branch of the Morgan Stanley Bank is predicting that autonomous trucks are still in for a rough go over the next couple of years, next number of years, and they're kind of hedging on whether they're going to invest or not. I read that the other day. They're not leaning that direction. The investment money, the investment banks are stepping back from autonomous trucks, and if there's no money to make the things fly, this could be the beginning of the end for that kind of technology for the next while anyway, so it doesn't hurt my feelings at all. Who was it the other day I read? Pronto, a trucking company called Pronto that makes autonomous trucks, is asking the FMCSA to waive the hours of service for their drivers while they experiment, because they say, well, the driver will be a whole lot more rested because he can work, he doesn't have to work as hard, so he can work longer. But then when quizzed on it, Pronto says, oh no, the driver's in complete control, hands-on 100% of the time. So how do they figure that's not driving? How do they figure that's less stressful? It makes no sense at all. I hope the FMCSA doesn't grant them a waiver of the hours of service. I think that's just stupid.
Ask them for questions.
David Steele, I've been working 3 to 4 on with 4 to 7 off. I guess that'd be all right. How do you like it? What are your thoughts on guy out in Colorado that killed a bunch last week with his rigs? I'm not familiar with that, Togai. What happened there? I haven't heard about that. Out in Colorado. No, I haven't heard about that. Fill me in.
Who blew up the Quebec scales? It's not a joke.
Did someone blow up the Quebec scales again? I haven't heard about that either. But they've had their trouble. They had a guy drive right through the scale house there a number of years ago. Just wiped it completely off the map. But no, I wasn't aware that someone had blown it up again. They've got all sorts of issues out there. Probably it was one of those twin 53s. He couldn't control it in the curves, and the whole thing just fishtailed him through the scale. Hard to say.
What do you do when groups of people try hijacking your truck? It's not a joke.
That's a serious situation. I know it's not a joke. You know what? I'd keep the thing moving, because if you stop, you're done. So I'd keep the thing rolling. And, hopefully no one will get in front of the thing, but if they do, you're just trying to protect yourself. If you stop, like you saw in Minneapolis, God knows what'll happen to you as a driver. But no, I just keep moving. I wouldn't keep moving fast, but I'd keep the thing moving. Keep them off the running boards. Make them chase you. Don't stop.
Christopher, a good scale is a closed scale.
Christopher, I agree. I agree. A good scale is a closed scale. It's funny too. The states have lost millions through this pandemic thing because they haven't been able to inspect trucks and pull over trucks and stuff like that. But you wait. When this whole thing starts to level off and things slow down, they're going to be making up for lost time. They're going to be all about revenue. So when this pandemic curve flattens, they'll be pulling trucks over left, right, and center to try to make up for lost time, lost revenue. The states make millions of dollars every year off money from fining truck drivers, and they're going to want to recoup that loss. They're not going to let that settle. So you watch, things will go right crazy after everything opens up again.
A flatbedder said he's very, very busy.
Oh, that's good to hear. Flatbed. I'd be curious to know if you're whereabouts you're busy out of. Houston used to be a big port for flatbed guys, but I don't know if it's still that way or not. My screen's still not rolling here. I used to see a lot of flatbed guys coming out of Houston, out of the port. I guess they'd get all sorts of stuff coming off the ships.
Don't look at me. How do you be affected?
Oh, you know what? That's a good question, and I'm sorry to say that I'm sure piggyback service has just taken right off and gone right through the roof. Although there's been a slowdown at the ports too, so there's not as much freight coming in from China and everywhere else as there normally was. So it may not be as heavy as I'm thinking. It might not be that busy, but and that's kind of a piggyback and kind of a no-touch world. So I'm sure those guys are doing well. I'm sure they're making hay while the sun shines. At the end of the day, though, it's still got to come off the rail line and get delivered to the customer, and that involves the truck. So hard to say.
Brian has a good comment. The scandemic has shown how needless most regulations truly are.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Or make them say it.
Someone has pointed out to me how needless the regulations have proven to be through this pandemic, because what he's saying is the trucks have been operating just fine without all the rules and regs, and you're so right. And it's the regulations are a money grab. It's about raising money for everything. It's not about safety. It's about money. And through this pandemic, yeah, everyone's been functioning just fine without the DOT. So you really wonder what value there is in having a lot of this stuff. Sure, there should be some rules, but not books and books full like there are now.
Have you ever heard of an old school trucker named Bob Spooner?
Bob Spooner, yes, Bob Spooner. I have heard of him, and I'm trying to think where he's out of now. He had a great big old yellow Pete with a great big bunk on it. Yeah, he's quite a character. He'd be quite the age now, I would think. He'd be up in his, I think he'd be in his mid to late 70s now. But yeah, he's been around the interstates ever since I can remember, and does all his own work. I ran into him one time in where was I? In Laredo, and he was pulling his truck apart and working on something down in there. But yeah, he's been around for a long time. He's probably known more than just about anyone out there these days. He's probably the oldest hand at the wheel out there now. But yeah, he's kind of a legend out in the interstates. Been around a long time. Smooth old driver.
Okay. What do you know of the U.S. hours of service changes coming up this fall?
What do I know about the new hours of service changes? I can't see the benefit. I know that they allow you a different sleeper berth split, and now you can show your 30-minute break is on duty, but that really doesn't solve anything. It doesn't solve anything as far as I'm concerned. I was hoping that the new hours of service would build more flexibility into the whole thing. So if you got caught at the shipper's out hours or something like that, you'd be able to go home or whatever it was. Just more flexibility. That's what I was hoping for, but they haven't done that at all. I can't see that the changes that they've made here that are going into effect in September, I can't see they're really going to do much good at all. So kind of a wasted deal there. But you know, they keep altering the system. They can't just stick with one thing. They've always got to be messing with it. There's interest groups that have their opinions, and I wish they'd just get something that works and stick with it instead of changing it all the time.
Dave, did you ever drive any chicken trucks?
Well, it depends on what you mean by chicken trucks. I never hauled live chickens, but I've certainly had a few trucks that were all lit up and rolling down the highway. I've had a few of those type of chicken trucks, that's for sure. It's they're great and they're a pain in the butt. Even with, I remember when the Grody system came in for the trailer lights, and man, you'd be looking all cool, and the one in the top right corner lose the ground, and you have to crawl up on the roof of the trailer because you couldn't have a light out, and you had, I don't know, 100 lights, and if one of them was out, the whole thing just didn't look right. So you had to climb up on the roof of the trailer and fix a light. Didn't matter where you were. So they were a bit of a nuisance, but they sure did look cool. I finally got tired of that chicken light phase after a while, and I went the other direction. Also, too, I was getting older, so I didn't run much at night. So I didn't care how many lights the thing had on it after a while. But yeah, when I was young boy, my friends and I would charge out west, just lit up like Christmas trees. Looked like high-rise apartments on their side rolling down the highway. It was pretty neat. It was cool to look at, I'll give you that. But you were always fixing lights.
Richard McLeod asks, can a guy make money with an old 359 Pete that's in good shape?
Well, 359 is a really good truck. Of course, it depends on the contract that you've got or the run you're going to do with it, but I would say so, because the 359, if you're fairly handy, you can still fix your own truck. The shop rate these days is like $130, $140 an hour. So I'd be going towards something that you could work on yourself and fix yourself. Run local, get a good contract. The local stuff or the short haul stuff pays better than the long haul does anymore. There's no money left in over the road trucking anymore. The moment you get a good run in over the road trucking, somebody comes in and undercuts the rate. But if you stick short, if you know your customers and you're dealing with them directly, not load brokers or anything, but have your own contract, dealing with them directly, running fairly close to home, yeah, the 359 Pete would be a great way to go. And you know what? The thing will never lose its value either. You could drive it 10 years and still get a good buck for it. So, yeah, I'd say yes.
Chad asks if you have ever trucked or done any trucking in Alaska.
No, you know what, Chad? I have never been to Alaska. I was always kind of hesitant to go because I heard, is it the Dalton Highway that they call it that runs up there? I heard that was pretty rough on equipment. So I always kind of shied away from going up there just because I didn't want to wreck a truck just to see Alaska. But I never was offered the opportunity anyway. We didn't, the guys I pulled freight for never had anything going up that direction. But apparently it's beautiful. I'm sure it's god awful in the winter, but in the nice weather, apparently it's just beautiful up there. And I'm a scenery guy. I sure would like to see it, but no, sadly, I've never been to Alaska.
Here's a question from Buddy Hawks. Here we go. If you had to choose between a Kenworth and a Pete, which is best and why?
Buddy, good question. What I used to do is I would shop, when I was looking for a new truck, when I was in the market for a new truck, I would shop the market. I would go to the Kenworth dealer, I'd go to the Pete dealer with the exact same spec and see who would give me the better price is usually what I did. My experience has been over the years that I found Kenworth had better quality control when they were manufactured out of the West Coast. I found the quality control kind of dropped when they made them in Quebec for a little while. Then they moved to Ohio. and I found the quality control kind of dropped. That where Pete's were made in Denton, and where was the other place? Nashville. I don't think they still make them in Nashville anymore, but I found the quality control really went up when they went to the 379, and in fact I've still got mine today. It's built in 2003, and it's still running just fine. It's got over 1 million miles on it, and I've been really happy. There's no leaks, no rattles, no shakes. So they both build good trucks. I could go either way, but like I say, I had trouble with a couple of the Kenworths that I got out of Ohio. So I'd have to say the Pete's out of Denton right now would be my favorite truck for just for quality of build. I know guys say that Volvos are a good truck, but and they must be better made in Sweden than they are over here, because they sure don't seem to do very well over here. I know lots of guys that have had them, and they bought them because they were cheaper to buy, but they didn't stay with them. They had trouble with them, mechanical issues.
Sign Cutter asks your opinion on the N14.
N14 was a good motor. I felt that was a better motor than Cummins' later offerings like the ISX, but no, the N14 was a good engine. I had a couple of those. They weren't the strongest engine. They weren't as strong as a Cat for torque, but I didn't care so much when I was younger if I was the first guy up the hill. I just didn't want to be in the shop. That was what was important to me, and the N14 was a good engine that way. So I say it was a good engine, like the N14.
Also have a question, what is your favorite Cat motor?
Well, my favorite Cat motor is the C15, which is what I've got right now. Like I say, I've got over 1 million miles on it, and it's been trouble-free. So I'm a guy that doesn't like to be in the shop. So I'd have to say that's my favorite Cat motor is the C15. I've got a buddy with a C16. He's had really good luck with his too. He's got something like 3 million miles on it now, 4 million miles. I've lost track, but it's in a 2000 truck. He still runs every day with it.
Okay, I've got a question from Benny. Dave, just a brief answer now. Are you a Croc or a flip-flop guy?
If you're referring to footwear,
Yes.
I'd have to say I'm a flip-flop guy. I don't own a pair of Crocs. Crocs are those plastic shoes, right? I don't own a pair of those. So I don't even wear flip-flop very often. I usually go in old sneakers, frankly.
What brand of tires are the best?
That's a good question. I've had equally good luck with Michelin and Bridgestone, and the last round I bought for tires, I found both those brands were getting a little pricey for me, and I've been running BF Goodrich's with great success with those tires, and they're not nearly as pricey as the Michelins or the Bridgestones, but all three of those are really good tires. I've seen some guys that have bought the Chinese tires and haven't had very good luck with those. I tend to stick with the American brand name tires when I can.
There's a new driver on here from Texas. I've just lost his name. He's wondering what a good starter company would be for him in that area.
In Texas? Oh, what's that tanker outfit that I like? Dupree Logistics. Dupree Logistics is a tanker outfit. They're based out of Louisiana, but they'll have a branch or a yard in Texas there around the refinery section, probably in Houston. I would check out Dupree Logistics. I'm impressed with everything they do and how they do it.
John asks, have you considered buying a new truck? And yes, if yes, do you plan on selling your current truck? Maybe I could answer that one.
Go ahead.
No and yes.
I would consider selling my current one. I'd like to see it go to a good home. I'm not planning on buying a new truck at all. I think I'm pretty much retired now, and I don't know. I find the market's too soft for my liking, and the conditions are too hard. So, no, I've done my time. Quite enjoyed it, but this truck I have now will be my last truck.
Somebody had suggested Melton in Texas.
I've heard of Melton. I've never heard anything bad about them. I think they're a fair size. They're flatbed operation, I believe. Yeah, check them out if they're in your area. I've never heard anything bad about them, so that's a good sign. I've been around long enough to you hear bad stuff about just about everybody that is, but I've never heard any cross words about Melton, so they might be all right. Go give them a call. Check them out.
Sign Cutter asks, how about hopper work? Oh, I just lost the question.
Sign Cutter, I would love to have tried hopper work. I've known guys that have done it. I never had the chance, but I think that's pretty nice work. And you know, part of the reason I always wanted to try hopper work was it's mostly rural work. You don't have to deliver with a hopper in downtown Detroit or LA or something like that. It's out in the country kind of stuff. I would have really liked to have tried that. So I'm sorry I never got a chance to. And the trailers are nice too. Hopper trailers, some of the better hopper trailers are really nice.
Here's one for you. Someone has asked, I believe it was here we go. What's the coolest car you've ever owned? Do you like answering that one?
The coolest large car? Or the
car.
The coolest car I've ever owned? I had a 1971 Pontiac Trans Am with a 455 HO, and that thing, and we tuned it up a little, and that thing would go so fast it would scare me. And I loved it because it could scare me. It was more machine almost than I could handle, and that was a great car. That was the coolest car I ever owned. It was about the only cool car I ever owned. I had a couple of motorcycles and a lot of beaters, but I think that's been the only cool car I've ever owned.
There you go.
Benjamin asks, what do you prefer, Dave? Pilot truck stop pizza by the slice or the heat lamp roller hot dogs and coffee?
That's not even a good choice to be making there. I go for the pizza every time. I don't do roller wieners. I'll go for the pizza. I don't know how people eat those.
Coffee maybe.
Yeah, I like the Pilot coffee.
Here's one that's right up your alley. Hi Dave, what's your opinion on the Ontario Trucking Association? Is there any value in this organization for drivers and owner-operators? Now take it easy with this one.
None whatsoever as far as value is concerned. They're an old boys club for the big carriers here in Ontario. And they do owner-operators and independents and company drivers. They do them absolutely no good at all. They're just in it so they can get together a few times a year and play golf and try to figure out new ways to make more money and save money and how to chop the drivers' wages even lower so they're making more. No, none of those associations are meant for truck drivers to help truck drivers. They're all for helping the CEOs.
Anthony asks, would you consider an international Lone Star?
You know, it's been a long time since I looked at internationals. Internationals used to be a great truck. They made a really good truck. It wasn't out of the ballpark expensive sometimes like the Pete's and the Kenworths were. These days, internationals had all sorts of issues. It seems to be one after the other. So I wouldn't be inclined to go international these days. I'm surprised, frankly, they haven't gone belly up. But no, they wouldn't. That wouldn't be my choice. And for resale anymore, I always consider resale when I buy a truck. And resale on the internationals isn't what it used to be either.
Someone has asked, are some logging trucks in Western Canadian provinces subsidized by the government when only one load can be hauled in a day?
No, those poor guys. Government here in Canada, with the exception of Quebec, doesn't subsidize their trucking industry at all. Quebec's the exception of that. But no, some of those guys out in BC, like recently, those guys have really been struggling. My heart goes out for them. I don't know how they're hanging on, frankly. They could use some help. I wish the government would give them some help.
Chad has a great comment. International is a big word to spell in Chrome.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Takes up the whole front of the grill. It is a big word to spell in Chrome. They used to make really good trucks, That I learned on an international. The first truck I ever drove was a cab over Transstar. Man, I thought that was big time. It was a 318 with a 13 speed. Leaked as much oil as it used fuel.
Someone has asked, what do you think about changing the engine to a Peterbilt 579 from a Packard to a Cummins? Or what engine do you recommend?
Wow, that's a tough question these days. The engines are so bogged down with this emission stuff. It's been my experience talking to guys I know that are still running. The Detroit diesels seem to be the most trouble-free out of the three. Now, I'm a Packard guy, so I would buy Kenworth or Pete. Now, if you buy a Kenworth or Pete these days with a Packard engine, you get an extended warranty because they're all made, by the same outfit. So that's certainly something to be attracted to. And the Packards really only seem to have sensor issues, but Cummins isn't the motor that it used to be. I'd have to look at the warranty for a new Packard with a Packard engine in it as compared to how much I was losing to go to the Detroit. But the Detroits are doing the best so far these days with the emissions stuff.
Anthony has a question. What do you think about the ape hanger shifters?
Oh, I'm going to lose some followers here. I think those are the goofiest things. And you know what? The farther up you put the stick, the more it wears on the forks and the shifting, like down in the transmission, it wears on the forks. I don't see the ape hanger. I don't know what the attraction is, but I think they're goofy.
Isn't that what the Lettuce King has in his truck? Do you call that an ape hanger shifter?
No, those are just
twin sticks.
But that's the factory length of the shifter pole on those things. But
so that was from factory.
Yeah, that was from factory. If I was going to mess with my stick at all, I like to sit low down on the ground. And if I was to do anything with my stick at all, I'd chop it rather than stretch it up. I saw a guy from Quebec at Jesus, where did I see him? In Iowa, and his ball on the top of his shifter actually dragged on the roof panel of his truck. I thought that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Question: is the 13-speed a tough transmission? A tough transition from the 10-speed?
No, not at all. Not at all. They're both good transmissions, but the 13-speed is more versatile. and it doesn't take long at all to get the hang of the button. So no, I not a big jump at all. Much you'll prefer the 13 once you're used to it.
Jamie Rogers, hey, I'm from Europe. Do you like any European trucks? And also keep up the vids. They are enjoyable to watch.
All right, thank you, Jamie. And yes, I do. I like the Scanias. And Scania, I wish I could remember the model number of the new cab over Scania that they just brought out here within the last year or so. But I think that is cool as hell looking, that thing. I'd love to drive a Scania. Apparently they're coming to North America. I haven't seen any yet here, but apparently they're going to start selling them here. Once they get a dealership over here, I'm going to be charging down to drive that Scania cab over just for a test drive. I think they're beautiful. Mercedes too makes a pretty nice cab over in Europe. They don't have them here either, but I've seen pictures of them, and they're nice trucks as well.
David says, hello from Jersey City, New Jersey. Big fans here over in the East Coast.
Oh, thank you, David. That's a tough part of town to be trucking in. I hauled chemicals in and out of Jersey for a while, and I got lost a fair bit. There's an awful lot of traffic, so you're a better man than I am if you can survive trucking in New Jersey. But appreciate you watching and following. Thank you.
But they do have some great truck shows over in that area.
Yes, they do. They have some great truck shows over there. There used to be one that everybody used to go to in Englishtown, I believe it was, and man, it was the standard for the industry way back in the day.
Someone has asked, Dave, do you like your trucks loud, vroom, or quiet?
I like them somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle. I like conventional, so generally the pipes run up either side of your head on the cab. So I don't like them too loud. Like, I like to be able to hear the guys talking to me on the CB radio, if anybody does that anymore. So I don't like them too loud, but I don't like them too quiet either.
Spencer has asked, have you ever met an old trucker, Jack Vleeming? He worked for Clark Freightways.
No, I don't believe I've had the pleasure. Oops, there goes my sign. That was just a matter of time. But no, I don't believe I have met him. Good fellow, was he? Most of the old-time drivers were. They were good guys.
Benny asks, Dave, did you ever drive a truck with more than one shifter?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have. I drove a 5 and a 3 with a Mack, and I've driven a Section 4 that belonged to a friend of mine, Michael Davis, and I've driven his truck. That was a rough learning curve driving with him. Every time I'd screw up a shift, he'd whack me with a tire bat on the arm or the wrist or the hand or something. But yeah, I've driven a couple of 2-stick trucks. They're great for what they are, but I far prefer the 18-speed.
Someone has asked if you like the new Volvo trucks, and the next person after that comments, to me, Volvo trucks represent the end of trucking.
There's a joke around here that guys that are driving Volvos here will pull into a truck stop and get out of the passenger side door because they don't want anyone to see them getting out of the truck. They're too embarrassed to be associated with a Volvo truck. But some guys like them all right, but not my cup of tea anyway.
Someone has asked, did you ever truck around Boston, Massachusetts?
Yes, I've been in Boston. Got lost in Boston. I was there's a tunnel that goes to the airport in Boston, and I knew I was too tall for that, but I had to I had a load of air freight, so I had to go to the airport, and I ended up at the beach because I got lost. This is before the Garmin's and everything like that, the GPS system. So you're just on the radio and with a road map. But yeah, I've been to Boston, some pretty tight corners downtown too. wasn't my favorite place to truck. My hat's off to guys that work with trucks down around in Boston too.
Buddy comments, thanks for the live chat. I'm on my 10-hour break and it helps the time go faster.
Well, I'm glad you're with us, buddy. Thank you for saying so. Geez, I'm trying to think of that section of Boston that I got lost in the one time that was the tough Irish section. And I wasn't very happy about being there. I had no trouble. I got in and out all right, but you're always kind of holding your breath and you want to be out of there by dark, but I was all right. I can't think of the name of that suburb or town.
Here's one you can answer. Dave, have you ever been in Hunts Point, the Bronx?
Man, yes, I have. Yes, I have. Not my favorite place back in the old days. It was a dangerous place back in the old days. My understanding is now that it's a whole lot better, a whole lot safer than it used to be. But man, you used to take your life in your hands creeping into there at 3 or 4 in the morning to be in there for 5 when they used to open up. But yeah, I've been to Hunts Point. I used to try to avoid it, but every once in a while I had to go.
Someone has asked why Prime is a good company. I'm not sure.
Well, that's a good question because I don't think Prime is a good company. I'm surprised that anyone thinks Prime's a good company. Prime and CRST probably sit right at the very bottom.
And England.
Well, England's even a little bit above those guys. At least England generally has decent trucks. But Prime and CRST, man, I wouldn't go trucking if I had to drive for one of those guys. Now, to be fair, having said that, I've talked to Prime company drivers that say they're making a good living there and they like it. But I don't like Prime because they were one of the big lease operator deals, the never plans, and I met all sorts of guys that got screwed by Prime. Gave me a bad taste for them.
Someone has asked what the worst trucking company you know of.
Well, it'd be a toss-up between CRST and Prime. And FFE, by the way, I don't know if FFE's still around or not, but they weren't any raving hell either. Yeah, there's lots of them, but those are a couple of big name ones. I wouldn't even consider working for those guys.
And your opinion on Werner?
You know, Werner, I like to slam Werner, but they're actually not a badly run company. You'll never get rich working there, but they keep their equipment up. They're in Omaha, which is a nice part of the country as compared to being out of New York City or something like that. These days, trucking is tough these days to make a buck at. And Werner is holding its own. Werner's actually doing well through this tough period. So at least you know if you didn't screw up, you'd still have a job there anyway. They're not gonna. I don't think Werner's gonna disappear, like some of these outfits have.
Someone has asked for your opinion on Clean Harbors.
Good outfit. I've got a friend that works there. Excellent outfit to get on with. The money's really good. So yeah, I if I was going to buy another truck, they'd be one of the first outfits I'd be talking to. Good outfit.
Someone has made a statement here. Being a Canadian driver, how did you manage to take loads from point A to B in the U.S. given the laws? Well, I don't think that you said that you did you?
No, we didn't do that. We couldn't do that. Some guys did do that.
Yeah.
And it was fairly easy to get away with before the age of the computers, but it was never worth my while really. I was always able to move around just fine going between Canada and the States. I preferred running in the States, but you know, after going to California, I just wanted to come back home to Ontario and then go again from Ontario. I didn't want to be bebopping all over the place. I didn't even like going up to BC and loading and going back down to California or Alberta, and I did that a few times. So, no.
Through the years of driving, what or where is the best scenery or the best view you have ever seen? Actually, we did a video on that one.
We did do a video on that one. It's a tough call because both Canada and the U.S. are just beautiful in the right spots. I really like the mountains. The views in the mountains are beautiful. Colorado, British Columbia, and I love the deserts through Arizona and southern Utah. The western coastline along Oregon and California, gorgeous country. I couldn't pick a favorite. That was one of the reasons I enjoyed trucking was the scenery. And there's all sorts of beautiful scenery out there.
Here's a question for you. What's the worst border crossing event you have ever had?
Man, I had a load of wine going into the States, and I believe this was a long time ago. I believe it was Italian wine. They'd flown over from Italy on a plane and unloaded, and I picked it up in Toronto, and I forget where I was heading in the States with this Italian wine, but there was at the time there was a quota, an import cap on foreign wine in the States, and I got caught by U.S. Customs in this quota problem. I didn't know anything about it. They pulled me into customs, explained to me that there was a quota, and they didn't know what they were going to do with me. And they held me there at customs for a couple of days, and happily it wasn't my trailer. So what happened is I managed to beg my way to bobtail, drop the trailer, and bobtail out of there. I told him I just wanted to go get some food because I was starving after 2 days of living out of the candy machines at customs. And I told him I just, I wanted to go get some food. I bobtailed right back across the Ambassador Bridge, fast as I could go. I left the trailer, I left the wine, and let the people that own the wine figure out the issue. I was scared to go back through customs for the rest of the week after that. I had to try it again because that's how I made my living, but that was the worst experience I ever had. And it had to do with the freight that I had on, and I didn't know about this quote on imported wine, but it scared me. U.S. Customs is nothing to mess with.
Someone has asked if have you ever blown any tires? Steer tires are the worst blowouts.
I've blown 2 steering axle tires in my time. Both of them were exciting rides. I wouldn't want to repeat either one of them. The first time I blew one, I was out in Saskatchewan, so it was just prairie, and it wasn't that bad. Except I hadn't been expecting it. Of course, you don't ever expect it, but the truck took a rapid dive to the shoulder. Luckily, instead of going across the other way, because the Trans-Canada was a 2-lane back then. So it went for the shoulder really hard, but I was able to catch it before going off the road and down into the ditch. And the second time I blew one, for you guys that live out in British Columbia, you'll know Field Hill. It's just after you cross out of Alberta into BC. And I blew a steering axle tire going down Field Hill. That was scary. I thought I was about halfway down the hill, and I thought I was going to go over right about where that railway tunnel is. If you've been down that hill, if you're headed west, you'll know where the railway tunnel peaks out. I thought I was headed for the tracks down there. There was a guardrail, but I was 110,000 pounds. I was pulling B trains, so I certainly had the weight to punch through the guardrail. But I was lucky. I managed to hang on to it and get her wound down. I was going fairly slow anyway because I was dropping down Field Hill. So I wasn't going really fast, but still, the truck took a dive for the guardrail, woke me right up.
Marco Val, thank you very much for the $5 donation. Dave, his question for you is, do you like the Freightliner CL6?
The CL6, I'm not familiar with it. Freightliner has been making a better quality truck the last few years, which is nice to see. So I'm not familiar with the model that he's speaking about, but they have been concentrating on quality into the trucks. They used to be just kind of shoddily put together because they were so mass produced, but these days the Freightliner doesn't make too bad a truck, so that's good to see too. They were a heck of a truck at one time back in the 70s. Beautiful trucks back then.
Somebody said, did you mean the C16 Cat?
Well, I thought the question was about a Freightliner.
I said someone has asked if you meant the C16.
No, I didn't mean the C16 Cat. That's an engine, but good engine. I got a friend that's got 3 or 4 million miles on one of his. Great motor.
He's the Freightliner Classic XLT.
Oh, that could be the truck. I don't even know if they still make the XLT. They're mostly. I don't think I've seen a new XLT in a number of years. They're mostly the drop nose models now, and you know what? I kind of like the look of them. I'm not a big fan of drop nose trucks, but they've got a new grill treatment that I kind of like. Out of the drop nose trucks, it's one of the better looking ones.
Here's one for you. Have you ever loaded a Unicool in Yuma, Arizona?
Yes, I most certainly have. I hauled primarily lettuce when I ran reefer. And as I'm sure you know, in the wintertime, the lettuce crop moves south out of California and down into Yuma. And just about all the lettuce in the wintertime from January through till March comes out of Yuma. And I like going to Yuma. I quite like it there. Out of Yuma, I would pop dead north into Quartzsite sometimes because that was, back then there weren't a whole lot of truck stops out that way. And they had a pilot at Quartzsite that was probably the nearest truck stop for 100 miles in any given direction. So I used to go up there after I was loaded. But yes, I think I've been to every cooler they've ever had in Yuma.
Okay.
I remember one of the strangest things about Yuma was you'd sit in the Denny's in the morning for breakfast, and you'd see these people wandering out of the desert all dressed in white sheets, and these were the nomads that lived out in the desert. It was kind of funny to see these guys coming in all dressed like Jesus in the morning, heading in for town to beg, borrow, or steal, or whatever they were going to do. They lived in the culverts out in the desert. Every once in a while there'd be a flash flood out there, and a couple of them had drowned because they couldn't get out of the culverts fast enough. Amazing way to live. You sure had good tans.
Someone has asked what your favorite truck stop is.
I don't know if I'd have a favorite. I like Walcott, I like Joplin, and I like Little America out in Wyoming. Those would be my 3 top favorites. Although there's one in St. Cloud, Minnesota. It's a Petro 2, and it's smoking good. I'd have to include that in my favorites too. This is a funny thing to say, but Walcott, they rebuilt Walcott. I couldn't even tell you what year that was, but I actually preferred the old truck stop over the new big fancy one that they've got there now. I thought the old one had more character. I thought the food was better then. I actually preferred the older Walcott truck stop to the brand new one, but the brand new one's still pretty damn nice, awfully fancy. You can always get a parking spot there. I like that.
Marco Vale has a question. Any advice? He's headed to Maine right now.
Oh, any advice?
I believe he's a new driver. I'm not sure.
Man, yeah, I can't remember the name of that hill and that road in Bangor, but it's the main north-south route if you're headed up towards New Brunswick. From Bangor, Maine, there is a nasty, nasty little grade right in the town of Bangor with a stoplight at the top if you're headed north. So if you can possibly prevent it, don't go that road. I can't even tell you the name of the road, but I remember just about ripping out my clutch a couple of times because I'd always catch the red light. And then to get that poor thing going again, oh, I hated that hill. Otherwise, I really like Maine. Beautiful, beautiful up there too, but didn't like that hill in Bangor. Right in town.
Did you ever pull any trailers or containers out of the rail yards in Chicago?
No, I've seen them from I-94. You pass right over a great big rail yard. I never did any container work. So I was never in rail yards. I never did any of that, but I never wanted to do that either. That was, I don't know. It looked hard on the truck. I knew guys that hauled containers out of that yard that would pick up cans that were top heavy or overweight. There were a lot of problems with those cans back in the day when I was driving. That, you know, the chassis weren't very well kept. Blow tires. Get to a scale, they'd be in trouble. I never had any desire to do that.
A couple of more questions before we wrap it up. Kyle asks, any advice to getting accustomed to driving 10 hours plus a day for a new driver?
Any problems getting accustomed to that?
No. Any advice to getting accustomed to drive?
I found that if you're going to drive 10 hours straight, you should do it in the daytime rather than try to do it through the night. The body is more tuned to sleeping at night when it's dark and being awake in the daytime. So once you get used to it, driving 10 hours is not a problem at all. But do it through the daylight hours. Don't take the midnight shift, because like 3 a.m., your body is at its lowest ebb for your circadian rhythms. Is that the right term, Kathy?
No.
What is the right term? Circadian rhythms. And your body knows it's supposed to be sleeping. And lots of guys fall asleep at the wheel, and you don't want to be one of those. So do your 10 in the daytime. You've got to stay rested to survive in this industry.
Here's one I know you can answer. You've told this story in a video, but you could probably do a quick rendition of the story. David Payton asks, how about a story of the worst trainee you ever had? You know the one?
No, which one? I've had a few of them.
The one that you dropped off.
Oh, yeah.
Quickly give that rundown.
I ended up, I only ever did this once. I kicked a trainee out of the truck. And he wasn't a new driver. He'd had his license for a while, but he was such an obnoxious SOB. And I had loaded out of Calgary, and he was from Calgary, and I was heading south, and I ended up kicking him out at the bus stop in Claresholm, Alberta. And I called the company and said, I tossed him out. He's at the bus. I guess he's coming back, but he's no good. I can't stand him anymore. So they were pretty upset with me for tossing him out. But I had a long trip to do, and I thought, there's no way I'm putting up with this guy for 1,000 miles. So we didn't last very long together. He was too busy telling me how it was instead of letting me decide how he drove. So no, I tossed him, and he smelled bad too. So that was the end of him. I actually had a trainee one time. I went back to the company and I said, don't hire this guy. He has no feel for the truck. And we were pulling tankers at the time, and the loads sloshed back and forth. And he was rocketing through the corners too fast. And I told him, and he just wouldn't slow down for the corners. And I went back and I said, don't hire this guy. He's going to roll the truck. And they were short of drivers. They hired him anyway. About 4 weeks later, 4 weeks later, he rolled the truck and killed himself. So, and they listened to me after that a little more, but if they'd have listened to me in the first place, he might not have died. It only happened the once.
One more question from Debbie. Any advice on how to handle A group of protesters blocking a roadway to try and stop a truck driver. Here's some good solid advice, because I think there's a lot of drivers running into this.
Well, Debbie, I wouldn't attempt it. I'd stop, I'd try to turn around, I'd call the company, say, here's the deal. It's not worth me risking my safety or the safety of the load or the truck. Don't do it. Sit it out, turn around, take it back to the terminal, do whatever you have to do to be safe. No load's worth getting into that kind of mess for. And that's my advice on that.
Okay, you can wrap it up now. About the, you wanna do an announcement about the video?
Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up for this evening. I'm an old guy. I'm getting past my bedtime here, so I should wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate it. It's always fun chatting to you guys. I enjoy it. It's as good as being back at the truck stop, getting to chew the fat with everybody. So, and I miss that. There's no truck stop anywhere close to me here. So I want you guys to drive safely. Take care of yourselves. Think before you do anything. Think before you get involved in any of these demonstrations or anything like that. Keep your head on your shoulders. No load's worth risking your life for. Stay safe and keep the rubber side down. Take care. We'll see you on the back haul.